Our first lesson today is a description of what the earliest church was like. And as I read these verses from Acts chapter 2, listen for what feels familiar and what might not. I begin reading with verse 42. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone, and many wonders and signs were being done among them. All who believed were together and shared their lives with one another. They shared their resources, ensuring that no one among them was in need. Day by day, they spent time together, broke bread in their homes, and ate with gladness and generous hearts, praising God and enjoying the goodwill of the people. And day by day, God added to their community those who were being made whole. Acts tells us that the early church studied and learned together. They shared their lives and their resources. They ate together. They made sure that no one was left out or left behind. Day by day, together, they embodied love. Now, I'm not one who says that we need to be like the early church. They were who they were, shaped by their time and culture, and we are who we are, shaped by ours. But it is interesting and worth remembering, I think, the roots of church. Acts gives us a glimpse of the earliest church. It was not a building. It was not a creed or a checklist, but a community that practiced how to live together in love. You know, every church I have known, and I have known many, tends to perpetuate its own patterns. We do what we do because it's what we do. People before us did it this way. People who come after us, well, they better do it the same way we did. But let's just pause for a moment and ask, why? Why do we gather on Sunday mornings when there are so many other good things we could be doing? Why do we sing songs that are sometimes familiar and close to our hearts, and sometimes they try us because they feel strange to us? Why do we update the words to old hymns? Why do we share the peace and tell stories and dip little pieces of bread into grape juice? Why do we keep showing up week after week, year after year? I mean, really, why are you here today? Whether you're in a pew or you're on your couch, especially if you've been hurt by church, or told explicitly or implicitly that church wasn't meant for people like you. And yet, here you are. Here we are. I was in the dentist chair a few weeks ago, and my dentist, who I like so much, was asking me about our church. My mouth was full of all sorts of things. You know how that goes. She said, how many services do you have? I said, well, we have 2. I was telling her about the first service. 30 minutes, just a little bit of everything. And she said, oh, I get it. You go in, you get it done for the day. And I know that that's how some people think about church. And if church is just something to get done, then what are we even doing? Who do we imagine is keeping track? Acts suggests something different. The earliest church was not about obligation. It was about the tangible practice of love, what love looked like, about forming a community where love wasn't just an idea, but a discipline. Church is a place where we learn, stumble, get held accountable, and engage in work that actually has the potential to make a difference. Sometimes I hear people say, through the years I have often heard people say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. And I always try to bring curiosity to that. What does that mean to them? I have noticed that it is relatively easy to feel spiritual when you are alone in a quiet room. It's when we gather in community that things get harder, that things also get real. As a community, we have to navigate shared values and real differences between us. We have the opportunity to practice curiosity. We need to ask whether unity and individuality can coexist. These are not solo projects. These are the kind of questions that I think about a lot, and they have to be practiced in community. Over time, as we've wrestled with these questions, we, this church, and those who came before us, have shaped a particular church culture here. And because we have a lot of new people, our staff put together a short guide called Unofficial Norms at First Con. It's inspired by questions that have come up in new member classes over the last year or so. Now, look at your pew rack in front of you. You might notice a little QR code. If you have a phone and you're inclined to do so, pull it out. See where it takes you. If you're worshiping online, that link is going to be put in the comments. It should direct you to the unofficial norms of First Congregational. I'll read you a few. You can catch up or read them later. The unofficial norms begins like this. We are so glad that you're here, whether this is your first Sunday or your 50th. You might notice that we have a few quirky customs. Nothing official, just some gentle norms. And then there are 10 points that follow. I'm just going to mention a couple. You can read them later if you wish to. The first is about clapping in worship. Sometimes we applaud with American Sign Language. We wave our hands in the air. Sometimes we clap out loud too. But if you're here for the first time and you go to clap and you see people doing this, you think, wait, what's happening here? And sometimes applause bursts out the old-fashioned way. Both are welcome. Another point explains why we remain seated for the postlude, which surprises a lot of newcomers who are accustomed to that being the movement time. And then I'll just read point number 5, titled, So Many Activities. We have book groups and hikes and music and justice work and crafting and meditation and dinner clubs. Yes, we have a group that has met for decades to discuss the poetry of Emerson and Thoreau. And because we are congregationally led, if there's something that you wish that we had that you're not finding, say you want a pickleball league, or a ukulele club, or a group for left-handed bakers who enjoy the poetry of Rumi, you can probably start it. And the guide ends like this. There is no test, there's no secret handshake, just a bunch of kind, thoughtful, imperfect people doing our best to walk in love, to seek justice, and to be real with each other. That's not a bad definition of church. First Congregational United Church of Christ in Colorado Springs is a place where we practice remembering who we are. We gather to remember that we're not alone in our grief or our joy, our doubt or our longing for a world that makes more sense and that causes less harm. This is a place where we try to tell the truth about the world and what the world could be like. We don't go to escape reality. We gather to face it, informed and inspired by our evolving faith. We face the world with courage and tenderness and each other. We pray together Not because we think that God is a vending machine that we can put a nickel in and get what we want, but because we pray to soften our hearts, to widen our circles, to confess the ways that we have been complicit in harm, and to gather the strength for the work of repair. We believe church is not only what happens in this room. Church is what happens when we go out those doors, when we refuse to accept cruelty as normal, when we show up for our neighbors, when we advocate for those whose voices are ignored, when we choose generosity over fear and love over apathy. What are we doing here? We're forming souls. We're shaping hearts. We're learning how to love our neighbors and ourselves more fully. Why does church matter? Because the world is hungry for communities that tell the truth and that choose love anyway. Because injustice thrives when people feel isolated and powerless. Because hope is not naive. Hope is a discipline. Hope requires practice. Church matters because it is one of the few places left where we say out loud to one another, we belong to each other. We are responsible for each other's well-being, not because we're meant to fix one another or to carry what isn't ours, but because love pays attention. In a world that tells us to fend for ourselves, church dares to say, your life affects mine, and my life affects yours. This is not a perfect place. It never has been. But it is a place where we keep trying to love more deeply, to listen more carefully, to act more justly. I close with words from Hebrews, an epistle written to a different early group of Jesus followers. And though the words are ancient, I claim them for us today. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for the one who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to encourage one another to love and good deeds, not neglecting to meet together, but encouraging one another. Friends, beloved companions on this journey, that's what church is about. May it continue to be so.